Let's go.
We good? All right. Volume control. So settings here. Additional settings. It's gonna look the same as the XL, just a little nicer. Additional settings here. You've got your trigger, your size. You can change how many cycles you want the intermittent peep to go on. Just turn it on or off, and how long you want it to last. We've got auto flow because it's a volume mode. What happens if you turn auto flow on? ATC, so it overcomes the work of breathing associated with your artificial airway. You'll input either an ET tube or a trach, inner diameter size, and how much compensation you want to give them. PB. And then AAC on the APF.
And what is psi?
Sigh. Show you up here. You turn it on. You can give intermittent peep every few breaths. You can put how many cycles you want to give them those sigh breaths, and then how long you want them to last as well. Usually useful for recruitments.
Why you use it
For micro-lactatic lungs, you're talking about psi.
for recruitment.
For recruitment. Okay, everything's for recruitment,
Yes.
essentially. So.
Yes.
Just a recruitment maneuver.
That's what we're trying to do with intubation.
To treat.
Hmm?
For either side's a recruitment.
Yes, so sigh on the Avias for recruitment. Your two, the way they work is a little different, but both of them are for recruitment.
Is this one also for like for low tidal volumes that are given?
That one's more on the Avia.
Okay, so this one it doesn't really.
Yeah.
Okay.
So on the Avia, if you set them at 4 mils per kilo for ideal body weight volumes, every 100 breaths you'll give them 1.5 times that volume, and then double your eye time by doing so, just to give them a little bit more boost. Here, the volume doesn't matter. If they just need more recruitment, turn it on, give them however many cycles you want that sigh breath to last, how much PEEP you want to give them, and how long that sigh should last.
How much do you usually set it for? Like, are you gonna need to know that?
No,
Okay.
because I don't know. Let me see if I had anything written down when I understood this vent. Nope, just recruitment, intermittent feed, that's it. Alright. On this vent, you'll also see VCCMV. Do we use that?
No.
No. Why?
No patient effort?
It's used in Europe.
It's used in Europe.
That's
No
literally
trigger.
what he has written.
Oh, that's like that T-pause on the other vents.
Oh.
Yeah, we don't use it. They use it in Europe.
Or Canada.
And then we
Yeah.
use it here.
The Queen's countries. So we don't use CMV because it locks the patient out. A patient cannot trigger a breath, so it's gonna make them more asynchronous, kind of make them a little more agitated on the
The
vent.
only way is if it has autoflow on it, right?
Hmm?
If autoflow's on, then they can trigger.
Sure. All I know, don't use it.
I know
But
it's
then
used
again,
for
we learn not to use certain things
Yeah.
and we use them in the real world. So for school, don't use it. Real world, go ahead.
They use it in the NICU.
Hmm. Yeah, same with VSync on the Avia. I use it at my job.
Yeah, but he
Like,
says you never use
Don't
it.
use it. It confuses the healthcare team. I am the healthcare team.
Be like, y'all need to go to clinic.
Y'all need to go to school. All right, we'll go to, I guess, PCAC. Nothing different here. Regular pressure control. Your 4 phases of ventilation, make sure you know those for every mode. It's going to be the same every vent. Just name game. I know Beth's looking at me. Know it. It helps. On this one, you've got your flow trigger. Once again, you can only adjust flow trigger on Dragers, but pressure is always on in the background. Psi is also available here for recruitment. Pressure modes on this vent will give you the option to do volume guarantee, which is PRVC for pressure modes. You cannot access that on the old girl over here, only on the new girl. And then ATC, same ATC for automatic or airway tubing compensation. There's also a PCCMV. We don't use that. Locks
So
the
we don't
patient
use
out.
any of the CMVs on this one.
Right. On that one, we do. It's volume control.
Right.
But on these, we don't.
Are we getting tested on that one too?
I guess.
Are they gonna ask us any questions? about the CMVs?
Yeah, that's usually Stokes' bed. Stokes is on a Draker always. So he might be on this one.
That's the XL.
He was on that last year. Don't upload this. But you might see Stokes on a Draker. Maybe.
Yes, Stokes is on.
I don't know. It could be this one too.
And then Avia
Aside
is
from like
for
reasons
Turbo.
why you wouldn't want to use it, are they gonna ask us any other questions?
No.
They're not gonna even make you click it or anything?
No. Literally during my checkoff, I was asking them, "You want me to go over it?" And they said no. So don't give them more to work off, I guess.
Oh, I would never ask.
Yeah. Well, during your like, I don't know, there's some downtime
Do you
sometimes.
think Dragonberry will be doing checkups?
Yeah.
Because she failed everybody last time.
Wait, what?
I had her twice, and I don't think she failed that many people.
Yeah, I know she.
I actually wanted her to come
Almost everybody
grab me
last
over
time.
there. Huh? Why? Was she asking like specific
Because she
questions?
said that we had a sheet.
Oh, she didn't know that y'all didn't have a sheet because she assumed it was like clinic.
Yes,
Yikes.
and so, I mean, whoever had her later in the afternoon had a benefit, but everyone in the morning, and she doesn't stop talking.
She's my advisor.
I think it's because she's from the Midwest.
Oh no. She comes to visit me in clinic sometimes for clinic check-ins, and I'm like, what are we talking
It's
about?
because she's from the Midwest. I'm pretty sure she said she was from Wisconsin, so,
Right.
I mean, I get it.
Well.
Probably why she's loud too, is because she's from the Midwest. We're all loud. That's
Okay.
okay, it's a good thing. I like
Not a
being
bad
loud.
thing.
You're loud, yes. From the Midwest, you're loud because everybody's like deaf. And you have to yell at people from the tractors. Like,
It's like deaf.
what?
Deaf? Deaf.
Deaf.
Everybody's like deaf.
Deaf.
Why are we yelling at dead people? I don't understand.
Wake up! You're awake.
While you're doing compressions?
No, I'm serious though. Like, people from the Midwest are just loud. Like, it's just who we are. But she seems like so nice.
She's nice as a person that checks off. I think now she'll know that you guys don't have a rubric, so it'll be a little
That's why I
easier.
think she's gonna be like better. That's why I didn't know if she was like.
She's really nice during check-offs.
I wish we had more like interaction with her.
Yeah, she teaches the online program,
I know.
so that's probably why. All right, back to this, guys. PCSIMV is PCSIMV. You can give pressure support on your spontaneous breaths. All your settings are going to be your usuals. FiO2, I time, or TI. Respiratory rate, slope is how fast to
Get to eye time.
hit.
Hit. That's what I meant, not eye time.
P-insp is your inspiratory pressure, or your pressure that you're using to deliver that volume you want. You got PEEP. Yes. PEEP, and then amount of pressure support you give. I'm going over additional settings mostly because that's what's different. Your modes are always going to be the same. So under additional settings here, you've got apnea ventilation on those spontaneous breaths in case they stop breathing. I don't know. It's a half machine mode, so they really shouldn't ever reach apnea ventilation, but it's there. Trigger, flow trigger. Psi, what is Psi for? Recruit. Yes. Yell it out. Volume guarantee, because we're a pressure mode. Half of it's PCAC, the other side's PCSIMV. So since we have that AC mode, we also have volume guarantee for the machine breaths. And then tubing compensation for the worker breathing with the artificial airway. Next we'll do...
Wait, Sumi. Back to the apnea on PCSIMV. You said apnea time and then you said a mode? Or how does that work?
So I was saying, because we're in PCSIMV is like half PCAC, half SIMV, right?
Yeah.
So they shouldn't really ever reach apnea time because they have a machine mode built in.
Yeah.
But we have this setting, I guess. So you could set it at 20 seconds, but I don't think it's ever going to turn on because if they go apneic during their spontaneous breaths, the machine breath will kick in.
Yeah.
So,
That's weird.
yeah. That's all I got. I'm learning with y'all because I don't use Draegers. So, let's see what's next. VC we already did. VCSIMV is going to be the same stuff. Yeah, VCSIMV, FiO2, volume, I time, rate, how fast to hit. you've got your flow here, but if you go under additional settings, you can turn auto flow on to make it PRVC, and that flow will disappear. You've got PEEP and pressure support for your SINV breaths. Then additional settings here are going to be the same as your other PC SINV. So apnea ventilation, trigger, your PSI for recruitment, auto flow for PRVC, and tubing compensation for that work of breathing. If you turn on tubing compensation, make sure you turn off pressure support. It's going to add pressure support. You don't want to give them way too much help. And that goes for both PC and BC SINV. Something made a sound. Okay. Next, we'll go to PC PRV. Okay. PCA PRV, what does APRV stand for? Y'all just sound so bored right now. Same. Yes, airway pressure release ventilation. Why do we use this mode? ARDS. Yes. And COVID. Really? Not really. Not really with COVID. COVID patients are on PRVC. So you guys know how to do the math already. It's going to be the same. Make sure you have time, I guess. I'm sorry.
I feel like let's do that one first.
Yes, start with APRV. Did any of y'all get gases for your truck off? Like, did they give you an ABG?
Yeah.
Like, they gave you an ABG? So prepare for that, I guess.
She also talked about the safe houses.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
That's what I heard. So she was
So,
asking like which
like-
mode you'd put them in?
No, she wanted to actually like I think the ABG, but the disease, like,
Yeah, I'm like, we're not there.
We have a whole class for it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like what cardiac.
Like, ARDS, I guess, pneumonia, thermal volume control. Everyone starts on volume control usually. I don't think anyone starts on APRV ever. Start them on volume control, see how their pressures are doing. If they're too high, move to pressure control. If they seem to be changing in their compliance too much, put them on PRVC. And it's a little easier with PRVC because it'll change based on their breath. It's a little more adaptive. I do too. Everyone does in this world. But I don't know what other diseases they can give you. Like surgery, volume control.
Or was it the other one that you said?
I don't think
It is. But Randy also wanted. I would just, if I was just like.
He calls it dual mode.
Call it adaptive. Get rid of dual. Call it adaptive. I think in his old PowerPoints he left it as dual, but he changed it to adaptive for us. So just make sure you say adaptive. Or just don't even say the word. And just say it changes per breath.
It changed about like I was
Yeah.
per breath.
Also on PCA PRV, there's no patient trigger. You go to additional settings, you cannot adjust the flow trigger. So there's no patient trigger. Apnea ventilation, ATC, and here we have auto release. Hibashi's favorite, 75%. I don't know why I did that. Anticlimactic.
I know.
Okay, so turning on auto release, what does it do? Why do we use auto release? I see that on the screen, but why do we use auto release?
Like adjusting your E-time and gas trap, or right gas trap.
Oh, yeah, you
Air
use it for
trapping.
gas trap.
Yes.
That's what I remember.
So auto release ensures gas trapping by setting your expiratory termination percentage. So the higher the number, the smaller the breath. We typically keep it at 75% based on a study by some dude named Hibashi. 75% is your golden number for that. Know that for your final exam, whatever block. I think finals left, right? That's it. Know it for your final exam. I think it's on there. Then you've got TLO Max on here. Let me see what TLO Max is because I don't use this thing. I think it's like the minimum E time. Yeah, I got nothing on that.
I had it, I don't have it.
Shit.
Tilo Max.
Yeah. Oh, I found my sheet.
It just says something weird, it says maximum Tilo can be set by the HCD and serves as a secondary for Tilo.
So it's like a
Tilo
backup.
will be at
I think it's
Tilo
the maximum
max for less
export time
than 4
during-
cycles based on the energy query.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that means.
Reading it. What does this mean? Tilo is your
Tilo Max? Oh, no.
Tilo max I have is you should have it set lower than your Tilo. Tilo is how you end your expiration by time if you don't end it by this percent here. I also don't know what that means. Who was I a year ago? April 27th.
For T-Max, for T-Low Max, I have maximum of time we can be
Mm-hmm. In what?
in expiration.
Yeah.
So you said it's like a secondary type of measure if like
If
you're.
that percent doesn't kick in, I guess. Like if you don't end it at 75%, let's say your patient just keeps going, I guess. I don't really know how they'll ever reach that point. Then you can use Tilo Max to end that.
Okay.
I don't use Drager, so I don't know. Let's see what else is on here that's different. There's a bunch of like little different things under his familiar cursory stuff. This one also has MMV. So VCMMV, mandatory minute ventilation, same as on the Excel. If you're breathing above your set, so you have a tidal volume and a rate, right? Those multiplied together is minute ventilation. If you're breathing above what you have set, you're just gonna breathe on your own. If you breathe below that, it's gonna deliver extra machine breaths to get you back to your target minute ventilation based on your parameters set. Good? That? Meh. Meh. Okay. Cool. I can't fix that, so meh.
I missed some of it, that's why.
Huh?
I missed what you said on some of it.
I mean, what do you want me to repeat it all?
Yes, please.
I could do that.
Yes,
Okay.
Yes, please.
Mandatory minute ventilation. It basically, if you're breathing, we have a set rate, right? You set, let's say 14 or 12 for your respiratory rate. We want 480 mils per breath. So multiply those two together, you'll get a minute ventilation number. If you don't reach that minute ventilation number, like let's say you're breathing slower or getting smaller volumes than that, the machine will give you an additional breath to get you to that target minute ventilation that you have set. If you're breathing well over that, you're breathing faster or you have bigger breaths, it's not going to do anything because you don't need the extra help. So it's going to ensure that you get that minimum mandatory ventilation, minute ventilation.
Would they like make you calculate that? Or just explain it?
I think just explain it
Okay.
because I think it'll tell you right here what you're. If you touch one of the parameters, either volume or rate, it should tell you your minute ventilation right here. Yeah, we love it when it does work for us. So if you touch your volume here, it'll tell you your minute ventilation should be 5.76. If you're breathing below that, it'll give you another breath. If you're breathing above it, it's not gonna do anything.
Same thing with your T-pause, right? Like, you don't have to calculate, as soon as you touch it, it'll tell you what that number is.
So if you were to go up on your flow a certain amount, it'll tell you how much your T-pause time would be.
Okay.
So here, T-plat is what it calls it. So if you touch your flow and let's say you increase it, it'll tell you you're gonna have a plateau time of 0.9 seconds, 0.96 seconds. So you're increasing how much flow can be delivered within that time, and it's not gonna be able to deliver the whole flow or the whole breath, so it's gonna create that I time, so the I hold. So, touch the flow for the T-plat, touch the volume for your minute ventilation on this mode, or any mode that has those options.
Yes.
Next we'll do SPN CPAP PS. The This one's also got Smart Care down here. It's just CPAP like normal. Additional settings have apnea ventilation because your patient will go apneic on CPAP. There's no machine built in halfway through the breath. So if they don't trigger a breath, they'll go into apnea ventilation here. Make sure you turn it on and you'll put a volume and the rate that you want them to go to.
What is that one for?
The apnea ventilation, so right now they're on CPAP and your lung's not breathing on its own. It shouldn't be because it's not a person. So right now they're in apnea ventilation based on these parameters that you have set. If you turn this off and your patient goes apneic, they're dying. So make sure it's on. Next you have your trigger. That's your trigger sensitivity. ATC, work of breathing associated with your artificial airway. So make sure you put that size in. It helps them out. This one has variable PS. That's the one that we don't have on the XL over there. Once it's turned on, it'll adjust the amount of pressure support given based on the percent that you want it to give and how much to give.
So basically, it's the range of your pressure support that you can get?
Yes.
Okay.
So if you set it at variable, let's do like 50. I don't think you guys have to know this too much, more so for your exam, like the paper stuff, but not for this check off. So if I set it at 50% and I want a pressure support of like 5, it'll give me a minimum of 7.5 pressure support and a max of 12.5. So it'll give you a range.
Oh, it'll tell you already then? Oh, that's nice.
You'll have to calculate it for your exam, but it does the math for you. Then, so we CPAP for weaning, just the usual. Then we also have SPN CPAP PS.
Oh, you came in really quick. I didn't know you were there.
Stealth mode. All the same additional settings. Let's see what's different. Oh, we can go Smart Care.
You have to turn CPAP on.
Yeah. I don't use these. I have not been to UH. Only for my intubation rotation, and that's it. So, I don't use trainers. I don't know this. Call me at UH, coach. Alright, so Smart Care, Smart CPAP. It adjusts the pressure support based on the patient's change in respiratory rate, power washing, end tidal CO2 volumes. So you'll put in your patient demographics under Smart Care, which is found under CPAP. You can put your patient's height, and then FiO2 maximum you want them to get on this pressure supported breaths, and then also PEEP. You'll put their airway size in. You can put in if they have any kind of like Guillain-Barré or myasthenia gravis or COPD. You can turn it on at night, give them a break, and then turn it off during the day. Make them work a little bit more so you can wean them off the vent. We don't use change guidelines, but here, this is where you can do those monitored guidelines. So based on rate, tidal volume, end tidal CO2, and then this last tab, patient session, don't worry about it. So it's just Smart CPAP. It automatically adjusts that pressure support you're giving the patient, helps them work out a little bit during the day, and then hopefully you can wean them. So, only on the Dragers.
And the alarm settings, are they all the same as that one? Is it like the same amount?
I think so. Minute ventilation, airway pressure. Let me go back to control first. So you'll have minute ventilation, airway pressure, respiratory rate, tidal volume. Yeah, mostly the same.
And how do you go to the loops and such on this one?
You'll go to views,
Oh,
and
sorry.
they typically have them set like based on facility. So the ones we have in lab, you'll just have to click each view to figure out which one it is. I think so too. Usually it's like 3 on one of them, 2 on the other. So this one's on 2. But you can't really memorize that. You'll just have to push it because it'll vary by facility too. So we have another Drager there. I don't don't know if there's more in the other room, yeah.
Okay.
So just make sure you're able to hit just views, and then you don't have to memorize which one it's on.
You just leave it.
Yeah. Pick one of the 6. So that's your loops.
And when you do your inventory and explanatory hold, do you also like adjust like what you can see on the side of the monitor?
In
Like the
terms
way
of,
we-
like the values?
Yeah, like
on
the
the
way
other
we did it on that one, or is
Um,
this way different?
I think it's different, but you can also just click it and then set it to what you want to see. So you don't really need to see the tidal volume based on ideal body weight because you'll have that set based on your calculation. So you can just change that to your plateau. That way it's on the screen, you don't have to find it anywhere else.
It's just like the special procedures, right, or maneuvers, I don't know what it's called. Okay. I just find that.
Right here. And then manual inspiration / hold. So you can give a manual breath with this one. Just touch it once. If you hold it down, you'll get your plateau. And you've got your expiratory hold to see if you've got auto peak, suction. And then if you need to disconnect your patient, you can do a manual disconnection, or you can just stand by and take them off. So, different ways of doing it. Here's your nebulization. You can set how long you want it to run. Your neb port is going to be here where you connect your O2 tubing. I don't know anyone that does it, but I also don't go to UH, so I don't know. Diagnostics is where you'll find your PO.1. I want to review what PO.1 is. What's PO.1? What's the 1 for? It's a time.
100 milliseconds.
Yeah, so occlusion pressure in 100 milliseconds. What does it do? How does it work? Beats me. So it'll basically stop delivering a breath, and it's going to start measuring how much pressure it takes you to generate a breath. So you want it closer to the lower numbers, like -1, -2 is okay. If it's up to like -6, that means you're working too hard to start a breath. Because right, to start a breath, you need to pull in negative pressure, and then air is going to flow from positive to negative. So if you're pulling in too much negative pressure just to start a breath on your own, you're most likely going to have a high work of breathing if you get extubated, and you're going to have to be re-intubated. So it's one of the parameters you use to see if your patient's able to be extubated. It's not just solely off of this. You can do your NIF, your vital capacity, RSBI, even just do CPAP, see how they're doing with lower pressure support numbers. But this is one of the values you can use to see, can we extubate? So if they're working too hard, maybe don't extubate. So closer to the high, like -6, -7, they're doing too much work to do a breath. It shouldn't take that much to generate a breath. So -1, -2 is fine.
So you said it's how much effort it takes for the patient to generate a breath?
So it's gonna measure how much pressure, actually, yeah.
How much pressure?
And then over here on the side, so you've got PO.1, then you've got PI or intrinsic PEEP. It's your auto PEEP. Just that. And then NIF. What's NIF?
Negative inspiratory use.
What does it do?
Maximum inspiratory pressure.
What does it do?
So like if you're able to spontaneous breathe on your own or not. Like, when you're pressure you're
Yes. Does it have anything to do with your muscles? Yes. And what number are we looking for?
-20.
Or?
Anything more negative.
Yes. Anything -20 or more negative. So if they're at like -15, maybe they're not as strong enough to be weaned and extubated. So that's like your critical value right there, -20. Let's see what else we got over here. We have regular PCSIMV, but we also have SIMV plus. Maybe not on here. Maybe right here. So what's the difference between PCSIMV and PCSIMV plus?
On the plus is more synchronous.
And yes, so those are your main two things. So if it's PCSIMV plus, it's more synchronized with the patient, but you cannot make it into PRVC with volume guarantee. Those are your main two things for PCSIMV plus versus just regular PCSIMV.
How does it make it more synchronous again?
I think it'll give you pressure support from high to low. Let's check. Yep. So you'll get this pressure support level here. It just synchronizes from inspiratory to expiratory. PSV. These are on your sheet under familiar cursory. I don't think I went over them much during my checkoff on this event, but I think they just asked about it. They didn't really want you to go through it. Things might have changed, so don't go off of that. Just know where to find it, know what the settings are. Mm-hmm. So PC, PSV, you'll have a set respiratory rate. If your patient doesn't trigger within that time based on your respiratory rate, it will give you,
It's like a backup respiratory.
yeah, you're normally breathing on your own with pressure supported breaths, but if you stop breathing, you have a rate, so it'll kick back in. Kind of like PCSIV, but not.
So this is your only spontaneous mode that's also patient and time triggered, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes. And then there's also SPN-PPS. Anyone know what that stands for?
I forgot it, I lost it.
Yeah, proportional pressure support. So spontaneous proportional pressure support. Always try to know what things stand for, because I think Ramirez asks what things stand for. I think maybe Carrion. Someone else does too. Just know it. Just know what things stand for. Easy points. Spontaneous proportional pressure support. PPS.
So this is a spontaneous process. But
Kind
it's-
of, yeah.
So it's like
Yeah.
pretty much PS.
Yeah. It's like PAF Plus on this vent.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So it overcomes like the elastance and raw, yeah. Either by volume assist or flow assist. So you'll go under additional settings here. SPN, PPS.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
But I remember.
SPN, PPS, volume assist, flow assist.
I studied it, but I didn't look for it. Does this one calculate it too?
For math,
Yeah.
because we don't want to do 80% or whatever.
Well, doing the whole elastance and wrong.
I think it's just like one's like flip flopped.
The
That's like your compliance equation, but like upside down. I think it does. I don't remember.
I don't know, it's so nice to us. All kind of stuff.
Yeah. Okay, so on here you've got your volume assist here. It does math. We love it. Flow assist. But you have to know what to set it to. So I think it's like no more than 80% usually. So volume assist will use your elastance equation. Flow assist will use your airway resistance equation because it overcomes the work of breathing, kind of like PAF Plus, and it adjusts the pressure support that you give your patient based on the values you put in there. I know for elastance you'll set it 80% of your, so it's elastance equation times 80%. I think flow is also 80,
Same thing.
but you adjust one or the other based on their work of breathing too. Yes. A year ago. So, got it. And then, just the other stuff is about the same. Your alarms are going to be the same. VTIT flow on this one and the other one. If you increase your flow more than what can be delivered in your set time, it'll create that T-pause. If you touch your flow, it'll tell you that T-flat over here on the side. So if they ask you how long will the I time or I hold be, touch your flow and it'll tell you. That's too specific, so I don't think they'll ask, but fun fact, I guess. I don't know. Auto triggering, you know how to change your flow trigger. It's on every setting under your additional settings except for PCAPRV.
So you go higher on it,
If you need to adjust.
like if it's auto triggering.
So go high and then slowly come down. Because you want to set it as sensitive as possible without auto. No one does that. It's always 3. So,
It's always at 3.
well, depends on the vent. Avia is 1, Servo 4, GE 3, PB980 3, PB840 3. You'll see different numbers in clinic.
Those preferred on spirit drinker.
You have a Neil process.
But it might just be some of the extra volume to test.
Yeah, because we would try to be.
Yeah.
I think that's it for this event.
It's on the sheet.
Mostly just the settings. So everything else is kind of just knowing it, like what's slow, how do you find your plateau, what numbers you want for plateau, what happens with compliance and raw. That stuff doesn't really change. Just know for the raw and compliance, they'll ask you based on auto flow or volume guarantee, not just PRVC. But you know if those are on, it is PRVC. So that's all I got for this one. Moving on. Any questions?
Will they have us connected humidifier to stuff? Yeah. Okay.
That's how it
It's
is
the
in the
same
world.
short tube to the humidifier. Yeah, nothing changes.
Okay.
No matter which vent you're on, it's always find that short tube and use it.
Can I see the PPS real quick?
Hmm? The main ones. Over here? The
Yeah, I
volume
just wanted to see, like, okay, so you would just calculate.
What do you use if you don't
25,
have a,
point, or like 8%, and then whatever that value is, that's the number that you're putting directly there.
Yes. Uh-huh. And same over here with your raw equation. And then peep is peep. That's all I got for that. I'm over the drinkers. Move it out. How much time y'all have left?
30 minutes, 20 minutes.
Wanna do GE real quick?
Yes.
Yeah? Does anyone wanna bring the GE over? They're over there, or I guess we could just move over there, I don't know, whatever's easier. Just turn.